everyone. Happy New Year. I think I can still say that, even though we're over 16 days into the year at this point. But Happy New Year, and welcome to another episode of TASB Talks. I'm your host, Matt Mitchell, Senior Communications Specialist here at TASB, and today I am joined by Kelly Rasti, Associate Executive Director of TASB Governmental Relations. And we are back from our winter break. And what better way to return to the airwaves than with the official start of the 89th Texas legislative session? And with that said, Kelly, I know your team has got a lot of work ahead. So how are y'all feeling?
Well, first of all, thanks for having me back. I'm glad I made the cut to come back for
You
a
did.
second episode. But we're feeling good. I think we're excited and ready to kick off a new session. I would say that everybody who's involved in this type of work has some anxiety leading up to a session. But when you really boil it down, we enjoy the work. We like having meaningful conversations with lawmakers and trustees. And I think that we're ready. We've been ready to roll up our sleeves and really dig in. So we're feeling good.
I know this is my first time being involved in a session like this. And so I'm just from my perspective, I'm super excited to see what y'all can do. And I know I'm going to be working closely with y'all over the next 5 or 6 months. So really looking forward to that. And with that said, just kind of jumping right into it, there was really one big ticket item that I think a lot of people kind of were looking at leading into the session, and that was, of course, the House Speaker race. So could you just kind of fill us in on what has happened this week with that?
Sure. Yeah, that was definitely a hot topic for, I would say, a couple of months, at least the past 2 months. It's been a really, really big item on everybody's mind. So it feels good that we are past that now and can get to work. So what took place on the first day of session in the House and the Senate, members-elect are sworn in. It's a really nice ceremony with family and friends and some constituents there in the gallery to watch. It's always exciting to see freshman lawmakers, too, getting to experience that for the first time. And one of my favorite things to observe is the kids, lawmakers that have brought their kids along with them and seeing them down there on the floor and walking the halls. It's a lively place to begin with, the Capitol, but it really livens up the place when you can see that side of legislators that you don't always have a chance to see later in session. So on the first day, which was on Tuesday, members came in, they were sworn in. There was a little bit of, some ceremonial back and forth and folks visiting in offices. But the first real matter of business in the House was the election of the speaker. Last session, of course, Dade Phelan was our speaker. We knew it was likely to be somebody new this time around. There were 3 candidates for the role who were voted on by the body on that first day. So we had 2 Republicans and 1 Democrat. First round of voting, went off without a hitch, but there wasn't a clear winner. So it went into a runoff. And what we emerged with is a new speaker in Representative Dustin Burrows up from Lubbock. So feels good to know who the speaker is going to be. And we can start moving forward now. And we're really eager to see who's going to be on what committees and who will be chairing those committees. And that was the first big hurdle. It feels good to be past that now.
Okay, so we have a speaker.
We have
so,
one.
So now what? What is next for the legislature?
We're done. We can go.
We're done. That's it. That's the session.
That's it. I would say this is an interesting time because we also have a new presidential administration. So inauguration is happening on the 20th, I believe, January 20th. And so probably a lot of Texas lawmakers and leaders will be going up to D.C. to join in that ceremony and, probably convening with some of our congressional leaders at that time. So for about a week or so, it'll probably be kind of slow in Texas. And we also have some interesting weather on the way. So it might be slow against our will because of roads.
Let's pray it's not as bad as it's been in the past.
I think the kids who would love to have a snow day might be praying in the opposite direction. But so I think for the next week or so, it'll be a little bit slow. I believe that tomorrow we'll probably hear from Lieutenant Governor Dan Patrick what committee assignments we'll see on the Senate side. That would be great if we can get a feel for the lay of the land and who in the Senate is going to be sitting on various committees. For us, obviously, the Education Committee is going to be a really big one that we'd like to see how that shakes out. Same thing on the House. There's going to be some changes, I would imagine. So we're waiting to see what those committee assignments will be. That's the next big thing, I would say, that we're keeping an eye on. But we've also heard from the governor that he's likely to call a few emergency items. He should be having a State of the State address in the next couple of weeks. I haven't heard specifically what the date will be, but his office, I believe, has shared that it will likely be in early February. So that'll be a big one. We've heard from the comptroller the revenue estimate, so we kind of know what we're going in with, and what the state, we would call it the rainy day fund, what the dollar amount is sitting in there. And that's always a big topic for folks. They want to know, if we have a surplus, what is that dollar amount? And lawmakers have a lot of competing priorities,
Yeah.
and it's going to be difficult, I'm sure, I would imagine, for them to decide where to distribute those funds and how to proceed. So a lot of things coming up in the very near future, but the biggest items are committee assignments.
So that's the legislative side of it. But what is next for TASB GR now? I know y'all were kind of in I don't want to say a holding pattern, but obviously you're kind of waiting for some things to be cleared up this week. And now that's going to be behind us. What is next for TASB GR? And also, what can trustees be doing now, especially the newer ones, in the coming weeks and months?
That's a great question. One of the things that we're doing now, and we will probably pick up the pace on as well, we're still analyzing bills. So we're tracking close to 900 bills that impact public education in some way. Right now, a lot of them are short. As session goes on and things are amended, those bills will probably grow in size and just the number of pages that are included in each bill. But right now, we're spending a lot of time doing that. We are working really hard to get in and meet the new faces that are in different offices. Each session, I would say there's a pretty significant change in staff. Well, now that I say that, maybe it's not always a significant change, but there's always folks who move from one office to another. Interns maybe move into a full-time position, and so it's important to get in there and see kind of where everybody has landed. And we've got a number of freshman lawmakers too that we still need to get in and meet with, and everyone is just trying to grab their time and their attention right now, so we're spending a lot of time on that. Trustees, I was actually over at the Capitol with you earlier today,
That's right.
and we saw some really great things happening with school board members and just school adjacent folks, parents and superintendents and others. And one group in particular that I thought was just absolutely fantastic, and I would highly recommend to any trustees listening that they consider doing this with their own community, and potentially even reaching out to these folks. Bernie ISD, Blanco ISD, and Comfort ISD, right? Those were the three.
That's correct.
They gathered together, and they brought along some folks from their business community as well. And they hosted kind of just a quick catch up with each other, a lay of the land. Senator Donna Campbell, who represents those areas, she had her staff there to help show them around and kind of get them situated. We had an SBOE member, Tom Maynard, was there as well to speak to them about the work that the SBOE is doing. They all got together, convened, got a lay of the Capitol, and then they divided and conquered, and they went to visit literally every single legislative office. Or that was the plan when I checked in with them. The plan was to stop by and take some scheduled meetings and also some unscheduled pop-ins to meet staff and just kind of share their priorities and start building those relationships. So I would, after seeing that, I feel like that is a best practice that I would highly recommend others try to replicate. And it's difficult sometimes if you live really far from Austin, and the budget, is definitely a problem right now for a
Right.
lot of districts. So it's hard to incorporate that travel cost to get here. And I get that. So not everybody can do that. And, Bernie ISD is within about 2 hours of getting to Austin. So that's one thing. If you're in the Panhandle, it's not quite as easy to get down here. But you can do a lot of this by phone and by email. And building those relationships right now is huge, because the stories of how various bills impact the students is crucial and means the world, I think, to legislators. They want to know, okay, what is the human impact of this bill that I'm either filing or that I'm voting on? And what better way to get that information than straight from the horse's mouth, from the teachers in your district or the superintendents or the trustees? So I would highly recommend that folks consider doing something similar. And I would imagine that, our friends that are in Bernie ISD on the board would probably be willing to help and mentor and offer some tips and tricks of doing that kind of an event.
Yeah, I mean, just being there and seeing all these trustees going door to door. I mean, you want to talk about grassroots. I mean, that's about as good as it gets.
Absolutely.
So that was very cool to see that, and we'll hopefully see more of that over the next weeks and months, and just really great stuff all around there. And we appreciate this update on the legislature. we'll have Docs back on hopefully soon. He's a little under the weather right now, dealing with the
Uh,
flu, which I think is going around. So we appreciate you filling in for him, and we will also have you back on. But we're not done yet because we did want to touch on a few more things. You're kind of turning away from the legislature now, and we actually have a few special TASB events coming up that I kind of wanted to talk to you about, and kind of you can fill our listeners in on what those are. First, coming up next week, that is Tuesday, January 21st at 11:30 a.m. We have a legislative boot camp webinar, and there's still time to register if you're interested in that, by the way. So what do we have going on there with that?
So we are actually still tweaking it after some things that we learned this week, and some best practices that I saw this morning at the Capitol. But we're going to cover really all of the aspects, well, as close to all of the aspects as we can, of visiting the Capitol and engaging. So some of the things that veterans of this work, school board members who have come up here and advocated in person at the Capitol are used to, are kind of daunting to new board members, I think, from what I've heard. There's just a lot of logistical items to consider if you're going to take the time to come up here. Things as simple as, where do I park, or where can I park? What's the cost to do that? What's the deal with security? What do I need to get in? When I do get in, where exactly am I going and what exactly am I doing? If somebody's interested in testifying, there's a few things that you need to know about how to register to do that, and by when you need to get that done. Tips and tricks of how to be clear and succinct in your testimony. We can certainly help with that. And that's an ongoing resource that we can offer to trustees. But in this webinar, we'll give some kind of tricks of the trade on that. And then I'm hoping that we will be able to incorporate a decent amount of time to share some of what we just saw this week. I really like amplifying best practices that we see out in local independent school districts. And so what we just saw this morning, I think, is a perfect example of what trustees can do when they really devote some time and energy into advocacy.
And now on to an in-person event. We have the Texas Federal Advocacy Conference coming up in Washington, D.C. That is happening January 27th through the 28th, and I know you and I will both be there for that, along with a few of our other GR colleagues, and it's a very exciting time, very exciting event that we love putting on every year. So, what's going on with that event? What's on the agenda?
Well, I have heard that it's going to be cold. I heard that from you, actually.
That seems like a safe bet.
Yeah. So I think some of us will be buying some jackets that can help you outside of, Central and South Texas. But yeah, we're excited about it. We've got a great lineup. There's a lot of exciting things that are happening in and around federal policy that impacts schools. And TASB's actually been engaged and participating in advocacy at the federal level for more than 5 decades. So this is not something new to our members, but it's exciting each time that we have an opportunity to do this. So we're really excited to get folks involved in kind of understanding the federal lawmaking process, which there's a significant overlap in the state process and the federal process. And if it's been a while since folks have watched Schoolhouse Rock and I'm Just a Bill.
Memory unlocked. I don't know if I tried to block that out, but I just kind of forgot about it. Now it's back in my head.
You can't block out the bill. And I hope that folks know what we're talking about. If not, we should absolutely find a way to link to that video, because it was such a solidly done video, and it has withstood,
I mean, it stuck with me like 20 years later. So,
absolutely. So there's a lot of overlap in the process, but there's probably members who are registered. I have seen some members that are registered that have never been to DC. So there's the conference, which in and of itself is going to be jam-packed with sessions. But then just being in that, in DC itself and visiting some of the monuments and going up to Capitol Hill and meeting with staffers and potentially some of the lawmakers, it's really hopefully going to be a memorable experience. So the first day, it's full of presentations from education experts. We're going to be talking about things like the U.S. Supreme Court hearing on the FCC's E-rate program. Trustees listening will probably know exactly what I'm talking about. That's got a significant impact on district budgets. Chronic absenteeism, there's some federal grant dollars available to address that, and some programs that folks are probably going to be interested in listening closely to. We're going to hear from other states, how they're tackling problems, what the solutions are available for us down here in Texas to consider. And then a really big ticket item is the use of AI in schools and the classroom, how that all ties into the use of technology for students, but also how districts deal with the new and emerging cybersecurity threats related to that and student data privacy. We've got a discussion with a DC lobbyist on what to expect for public education under this new presidential administration, and then also just with the new U.S. House and U.S. Senate. And then, so that's all the first day. It's a 2-day conference. On the first day, they're going to be in multiple sessions hearing from a lot of different experts. Day 2 is on Capitol Hill. So on that day, they will be visiting with various offices, staff, and lawmakers, and building relationships or growing existing ones, and having discussions about how some of these federal policies will impact our schools and our students. So an exciting conference.
Yeah, definitely. We are looking forward to that, looking forward to everything we have coming up, and really just looking forward to the next 5 or 6 months to see what is in store for the future of public education in our state. And on that note, now I want to say thank you again for coming on. We appreciate you taking the time. And you've had a really busy day running around, so taking this time to kind of pinch hit for us, with docs being out. All that to say, we will have you back on though. You've been on twice now. You have officially made the cut, as if that was in doubt. It wasn't at all. You've been terrific.
Thank you.
And yeah, thanks again for joining us. We really appreciate it.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me, Matt.
And thank you all for tuning in. And we will see you next time. And don't forget to subscribe to TASB Talks wherever you get your podcast: Apple, Spotify, Google Play. We are everywhere. So thank you again, and we'll see you next time.